Hello friends, welcome back to another episode, and in this episode we'll try our application called Animal Adoption to deploy into BTP. So for that I'll start from scratch by cloning one of my project which is available in my GitHub repository. So let's clone this one and start with that. We can put git clone and the project name is called Animal Adoption. So it will create a folder and let's get into that. Animal adoption, and let's open it in a new terminal, and this gets opened. Exactly. So now what to do next will be to install certain dependencies. Let's do that by running npm install command. By the way, I updated the npm package manager with the latest version, so make sure you also try out, otherwise it may create problem during your build preparation. All right, so our node modules gets created and all other things are pretty available in my repository. Nothing much I have changed. To start with, let's run cds watch and see how it works. Let's open 4004. Yeah, it is opening. We can go to animals. We have the animal service up and running. So let's open the application and we can start adopting it. Let's put certain email ID, some address, summary, and adopt. Yeah, my application is up and running. And also in previous episode, I discussed how I have enabled the attachment kind of a feature which can use to upload certain photos that I'm interested to. So that feature also I explained in previous tutorial. If you have not watched it, definitely recommend it, because I have not used any CDS plugin or attachment plugin rather, but entirely a freestyle kind of attachment that I have added on the Fiori application, a Fiori Element based application. All right, so now this application I'm planning to deploy into BTP. So what we have to do first, and that is like certain database, right? Because we are running in memory, and once we deploy into BTP, we need certain database. And for that, I explained in my just previous episode that how to enable or create the HANA cloud instance. So that is important because this instance should be up and running, and then before we start deploying preparation. For that, you can check in the database. It's up and running at this time. Hopefully during recording time, it's still showing as in running state. So this is important. Okay, otherwise your deployment will fail. All right, so what next? Let's close this one. Let's stop this terminal. And to start with, we have our access security, means certain authentication we added, and that was we have been doing using certain mock kind of an authentication. But in BTP, once we deploy, we need to enable the real authentication mechanism, or XSUA, user authentication authorization. We have to enable for that. So obviously this is one of the thing, and also I'll explain how to test this application locally, right? So every time you deploy to test your little changes will be cumbersome and time taking. So it's worth knowing how to test the application locally. That also we'll talk about in this episode. So stay tuned till the end. And coming to my channel for the first time, request would be to subscribe this channel. And don't forget to hit the bell icon, as it will intimate you the next time I upload a new content for you. So let's get started. So let's start using CDS add feature called HANA, but for production. Okay. So this will actually add in the package.json, the HANA feature. You'll see, yes, it's added. Similarly, add access UAA for production. Okay. Yeah, it's added here. So come to your access security file and add this redirect URLs, which is important for our testing. I'll explain it a little later. Once they have this one, let's save these changes. Now we'll be deploying our applications along with database and services. Now to host an application, I'm planning to use managed app router, because I'll be using SAP Workzone Standard Edition in BTP trial account. So go to your BTP trial and go to instances. I think it will be in the trial. Go to instance and subscription. You make sure that you enable this SAP built Workzone standard plan. Okay, so that you need to subscribe. So if you click on create, you can find this build Workzone. Don't go for instance based, but it will be for subscription based. You have to just enable. So this is important. After having that Workzone subscribed, make sure you have this all different role collections added to user ID, Launchpad, advanced theming, and Launchpad external user. So for that, what you have to do, let's go here and run something called cds add workzone. Once we run this command, certain changes will happen under package.json here, as well as under app router. You will find certain more xsapp.json file will be also created over here. So let's run and see the differences. Yes, you see xsapp.json just created. Also in the package.json, you will have seen this destination HTML5 repo and Workzone is added, right? We have our app folder gets updated with xsapp and other different dependencies, as you can see. So let's install, call npm install, but we'll be running prefix app and then adapter, because just for remotely, because we are not in the app folder. So that's why we'll be using this dash prefix. That way it will install all the dependencies mentioned in package.json. So let's hit that. So installation is done, node modules is created. So next would be to wrap all our database app and service together as a multi-target application. We have to enable the MTA, because it will be MTA, which is the deployment descriptor. Again, we'll be using cds add MTA option, and it will create one more file. Let's run it, and it's just created over here. Let's go and see what's happened, what's created. The modules created called the service. Another, let's close that one. Then we have db deployer that will deploy our database related artifacts, and it will create the distribution under generation folder. It will create one, and there inside it will create all the db artifacts called the HANA related database tables and views. We'll have an app deployer also, which will be helping to deploy our application artifacts. We have the HTML5 application name, and finally we have certain destinations. That's our models. Okay. In case you're getting some error during build preparation because of the size issue, you probably can ignore the node models. That way your build file will be a bit slick. It's easy to deploy into BTP. So for that, what you have to do, you can go to this module section. You will find something called build parameters. So here you can add something called ignore, and then we can put node models with a /. So this is needed, and you can copy this one wherever you want to add this. So I just added the application service. We don't need a db deployer here, but app deployer you will need it. So let's ignore here. Adapter. Yep. And destination, probably. I think I don't need a destination here. So that pretty much. Okay, let's save this. And now we have to go our package.json, and let's add two more scripts. So one is for the deployment purpose, another is for the build purpose. Okay. All right. So let's save these changes. Now, before we build our mtrk file, two small things you have to do. The first thing, go to xsapp.json, and here you can put a welcome file name called index.html. Let's save the changes. And now let's run the script called build, which we have just added under package.json, and it will create one empty archive file, which will be just deploying it to BTP. So for that, cds We can just simple put npm run build, and it will be start preparing our build. It may fail in case I make any mistakes, then that you have to validate and you have to correct it accordingly. Yeah, so build preparation started, seems it's not complaining, but there will be one problem, and the problem I'm just telling you what is supposed to be, and let's fix that before we deploy. Yeah, build process is successful, but it will fail once we deploy it to BTP. So let's show that how to debug if something goes wrong after deployment. What is the problem? I know the problem would be over here. Go to animal.csv. We have this adapter ID, but that field is less. The value is not having a comma separated, and that's why it will fail. Anyway, I'll not change it, but let's deploy it. It gets failed, and then we'll fix it and it'll redeploy and see whether it's fixed or not. So now we can run the command npm run build. Sorry, if we run deploy, because we are just going to deploy this one. And it's very slick. You see only 2.17 MB, which is very slick because we are avoiding the node modules. So that is important. Okay. In certain cases, if it is taking too much space, you can have this option enabled under MTA. That's the reason I just, told. Without that, it will be hardly 6 MB for my case, but in Business Application Studio with a trial, this can be pretty, essential. Now you can see there is a failure, process failed. And if you scroll a little up, you'll see that animal adopt db deployer is actually failing. And they're asking that we can download the application log to understand the problem better. And this is the command we can use, which is also showing over here. So copy this entire thing till here, and we can, paste it and run. It will download the logs, and our interest point should be that db deploy log, right? So close this one and go to MTA db deployer. So let's search for failure. Okay. Now you can see that HDB table expand failed. And before that, you can see that CSV record on animals, it has 7 fields, but 8 fields were expected. That's what I said in the animal CSV file. You can go to CSV once again with animals, and we have total 8 fields, but we don't have all the 8 sales field, so we can put a comma separated. That way it will be fixed. Yeah, so let's save this, and once again we'll build it and we'll try deploying it. I'm not recording it, but once it's successful, I'll show that message. I redeployed, and this time process finished. So that means our fix actually worked over here with the comma separated, right? So now let's go to BTP, and we'll go to our spaces, and there we can check our application now successfully deployed, and here you go, right? So this is an animal adopt service which is started, but the db deployer is stopped because once the deployment is over with all HANA artifacts, this deployer has no functionality, so it just stopped it. Now we cannot access this one. If we run it, it will show that not found. Okay, cannot get. So for that, what will be our activities this time? We'll go to trial once again, and here we'll find something called HTML5 applications, because we are using managed app router, so the runtime will be managed by BTP, right? So if we go to HTML5 application, and this time we'll find our adapter app. Fantastic. So to ensure it works correctly, let's copy and open in a private window, and you see it's giving a forbidden because the authentication has actually failed. Now to enable the authentication, we need to add certain role collection to our user ID in BTP. So go to BTP instance and click on role collection, and here we can create a new role collection by click on create button called animal adoption role collection. Let's create that, and here if we go to the default detail page, click on edit, let's maximize it. Here if you search, you will find this against this application. We have this 2 role, admin and adapter. Let's add that role and click on save, but before that we have to add our user ID, of course. So we can add and click on save. So the user ID is now having the required roles, and we can use these roles to access our application. All right, so let's go to this HTML5 application once again, and right click and click on new private window. So it will go for a login. So let's log in with more BTP credential. Excellent, credential is resolved and you are able to access our application all the way from BTP. Now, to see the data from behind the backend database in HANA table, we can go to our HANA instance, click on this three dot. There is something called HANA Database Explorer. Click on that. It will open this Explorer. And now we have to add the HDI container. All right, so for that, click on here, HDI container. This is our animal adoption DB. So select it, click on OK. It may fail because of certain service key creation, because it takes certain time. So in that case, yeah, it could not retrieve the service key. Its creation may be still in progress. So you can validate here under instance and subscription. Go to this adopt DB, go to service key. You see, this is still in the creation process, so it will take a little time. Once this is done, then we'll be able to connect via this database explorer. Let's wait for some time. Looks like the default key creation process is done. So let's go once again and refresh. Excellent, it doesn't complain anymore, and we are able to access the different tables and views. Click on tables, and we are able to see all the database tables that we all deployed via our local CAPM application all the way from VS Studio Code. So click on animals. So this is our constructs of the database. Click on open data, and we can see all the data that generated out of CSV file. Excellent. So it's pretty easy to deploy application, but sometimes it gets into trouble as well, which we need to validate, and we have to fix it accordingly in case we're stuck with something unknown. Now, to test the application locally, we have to understand we have bound a couple of services with our application and deployed to BTP. And this is what the service is up and running. Now, to test locally, we have to make this local application bind to the same Cloud Foundry services. How to do that? One of the way would be CDS bind. Let's say we want to bind the authentication service. So that means we have to add this animal, adopt auth, then colon using the key, which is over here. Okay, so that way it will create one private JSON file. It will retrieve all the Cloud Foundry information, and here you will find one more file gets created called CDS private JSON. Here is the user ID and certain other information, and the pickup service name is authentication. Okay, and it's in hybrid mode because we'll be doing a hybrid testing. So, but if we need all other relevant services, then we can do together by running a command called CDS bind, but this time -a, and copy this service and put it here. That's all. What will happen? It will check all the different service key that is added now. Let's say destination, authentication, and DB key, and that all you can find over here added. The DB, the destination, and authentication, all linked to our local application file. So next is to resolve this authentication. We need to add an app router, kind of a reverse proxy. Okay, so through this client, our authentication will be resolved, and that authentication token or JOT token will be forwarded to our CAP backend service running on the port 4004. So that's why we added this one called 5000 over here for the local testing. Our app router will run over here, but to do this redirection, we have to add called CDS add app router. What will happen? It will create one more folder under the app folder called router, and it will add certain necessary files. You can see over here. It will have one more xsapp.json specific to app router, which follow this different routing. And most importantly, another file will be getting generated called default environment. And here you can see the 4004 actually redirecting to for destination service API, which is mentioned in the route called service API. Okay, when it will find this API, it will automatically get into the backend 4004, kind of a port switch and kind of a redirection, I would say, rather, not the port switch, but the redirection happening from 5000 to 4000. So let's install the dependencies, right? So for that, again, we can run npm install prefix, but this time app and a router. It will install all the dependencies required to run the app router locally. The installation is over, and it will soon it will create on package log.json. Once it's completed, you can refresh and you'll see the package log.json created. All right, so app router is done. So what to do? Now you can run the command called cds bind execute npm start prefix app and then router. What will happen? It will go to this app router folder, and under package.json, it will run the start command, and that will run the app router. And it will be listening in port 5000. That's a default port. And you can see that it's listening on 5000. Not only that, you can see that it's getting all the service key like authentication, database, and destination. This all gets accessed using this private JSON. Now, side by side, we have to create one more terminal, and here you can run called cds watch profile hybrid, and the cds watch command is listening on port 4000. So here our application running on cloud. So let's take one more private window, and here we can put 5000. What will happen? It will try to log in. Now our application is actually redirected to 4004 backend service via this 5000 port, which is running on the app router port. And then I click on this application, authentication, all done via BTP side. Excellent. The application is running locally, but the backend database is pointing to the BTP HANA cloud instance that we can validate. Let's run side by side. So this is our BTP and this is our local port. So let's delete one record called fluffy cat, which is also available in BTP HANA cloud instance. Let's click on delete. Yes. And it's deleted. Correct. So let's refresh this one or click on go, whatever. And I'm not supposed to see this one over here. Voila, you see exactly. It's actually connecting all the way from local instance, and it's accessing the BTP HANA cloud database. All the authentication is happening by this private JSON configuration. I hope this was helpful. If you like this discussion, don't forget to hit the like button, share with all your colleagues so that others can also get a chance to understand how this deployment works, because it gives the end-to-end clarity. Thanks for watching. See you next.